In today's lesson on sales effectiveness, we're going to be talking about salesperson marketing. Why is salesperson marketing important? It's important because of the following problem. 50% of salespeople have indicated that they have to generate their own leads for their business. Half of all salespeople have to generate their own leads and therefore have to market. Now the challenge we have is the marketing material that's provided to them is very ineffective. In fact, many of these studies that we've seen, about 80 to 90% of the marketing material that's provided to salespeople they consider to be useless and ineffective for both their sales as well as their prospecting activities. And then the final problem that we have to deal with is most companies teach their salespeople, or many of them teach them how to sell, but very few of them teach them actually how to market and how to generate these leads, which happen 50% of the time. So, as a result of that, there's a number of challenges that salespeople have to face when it comes to marketing. The first challenge is there's a lot of noise in the marketplace. Every day, people are inundated with over 4,000 marketing messages. That's almost a 700% increase just over the past 40 years alone. The average person is also bombarded with over 2 million bits of information at any one time. So the human brain to actually deal with this has developed what's called the reticular activating system, which allows it to be able to filter out unimportant information. So think about this for a second. If you walk into a crowded restaurant, there's going to be conversations and noise going on all around you, right? In most cases, you will not be reacting to it. But if you hear somebody say the magic word, which is your name, watch what happens. Subconsciously, you'll look. You'll react to it because your body and your mind instantly becomes curious around that information. The second part is poor timing. The reality is 50% of leads are qualified but just not ready to buy on your schedule as a salesperson. So if you're trying to close them on a weekly, monthly, or annual or quarterly basis, the reality is half the time they're just not ready. So that's one of the challenges you're going to have to deal with. And a lot of salespeople, as a result of that, will typically let the opportunities go if they don't close on their time, right? So out of sight, out of mind. And then the other problem with that is when the clients are actually ready to buy, in many cases they conveniently buy what's on their mind at that time. What can they remember to be able to make those purchasing decisions better? Another problem you're dealing with is there's little or no trust out in the marketplace today. The reality is most people have been burned at some point or another by salespeople or some type of sales process. And the other problem is maybe your product brand or you or both have very little or no brand value within the marketplace. There's no message around what you're doing initially by who you are. The other problem is you might have just not given anybody the ability to develop that kind of trust in you yet as well. Another challenge you're dealing with is value. The one thing I often tell salespeople is don't confuse price with value. If you lose a sale because of price, the buyer did not see the value in what you were selling or how you were selling it, period. The value to them, if the value to them is compelling, they will pay the price. But the challenge is in most cases, that's what you're dealing with here. And the other problem with the value is there's a lack of increased repetition. So think about how people buy. People often buy like lemmings, right? So if you go out and, for example, you see a new restaurant opens, many new people won't go to that restaurant initially, but the longer they see that it's open, the more cars they see out front, the more value they're going to perceive around it because of the repetition of what's there and the longevity, perhaps, of what's existing there. And then the final piece of this is poor leverage. The reality is effective sales growth is about networking and leverage. And you cannot be at all places at all time. Now the beauty is that technology now allows you to do today what salespeople only dream of just a couple decades ago. The bottom line is you have a finite amount of time each day and you have to make the most use of it and the most effective time that you have. So most salespeople in business, most successful salespeople in business today will utilize levels of high leverage. So for example, Bill Gates became a billionaire because he made a lot of millionaires. Joe Girard, who was the #1 car salesman in the world, right, the Guinness Book of World Record holder, wrote handwritten notes once a month to each one of his clients. He couldn't do that to 13,000 clients, but he had people that helped him to do that for him. So the reality is in sales, you need to find out what you're most passionate and most effective at, and then leverage out all of the rest of those functions to other people that can help you out. And then create a system around that to make sure that you're most effective. So, when you look at these challenges that you face, it brings up a rule that we often talk about in marketing called the Rule of 7. And basically what this does is the Rule of 7 basically says that you need to be in contact with somebody at least 7 times or more for them to actively want to buy from you and remember you. The reality is when it comes to marketing today, the typical marketing response rates you see from traditional marketing is about 1 to 2%. Whether it be mailings, emails, what have you, a typical response rate is about 1 to 2%. This is where the Rule of 7 can help set you apart. Because what you can do is you can utilize this technique to better build up your own personal brand and be able to remember, and for people to be able to remember you when they're ready to buy. They can also, you can utilize this technique to become more of a trusted advisor in their mind as opposed to just another salesperson or somebody who's trying to sell something to them. So what are 4 keys to success in creating this marketing strategy and Rule 7 type marketing? The first one is repetition. So think about something interesting about repetition, right? When you watch commercials, when you watch the Super Bowl, you're watching ads about Coke and Ford and other things. You already know what these brands are, so why are they continuing to show them to you? They're showing them to you because of repetition. They're trying to activate the reticular activating system within your mind so that when you're thirsty or when you need a car, you need to remember them as brands and hopefully buy from them. The idea is you want to be able to do the same thing when people are ready to buy from you, whether the practice or the products and services that you're trying to sell them. The second piece of this puzzle is consistency. The idea is when you are marketing, you need to create a message and promotion and consistent messaging that they see over and over and stick with it. Think about it. How many minutes does it take to save 20 minutes or 20% or more on your car insurance with Geico? I ask that question because most people watching this video already know the answer. How do you know that answer? Because it is repeatedly and consistently you're hearing it over and over again through their marketing efforts. Targeting. Targeting is important because when people buy, they buy, 70% of people will buy to solve a problem, 30% will buy to gain something. So you have to know what the problems are and the gains of your target market profile to be able to effectively sell to them. And you should be able to segment your marketing relative to where people are within the buying process. Are they a new buyer who doesn't know who you are? Are they people that have already been previously engaged? These are the types of questions you need to ask when you're doing your targeting and segmentation of your marketing. And finally, and most importantly, is usefulness. 86% of executive buyers have indicated that the messaging they say they receive from salespeople is useless. It has no commercial impact whatsoever. 86% of the time. Interestingly enough, the #1 reason why salespeople do not make their sales quota is because they cannot communicate the value messages to their client. Which is interesting because we're seeing the two in parallel there. So when we're talking about things that we need to do, the challenge we have in the business world today is we tend to, as companies and as businesses and organizations, we train our salespeople on how to sell our products and services instead of teaching our people how to solve our customers' problems or to gain something with the use of our products or services. So how do we now execute on the 4 keys to success? The trick to doing that is creating an effective marketing strategy. There are 6 steps in this process. The first step is to become an expert in your field. Always strive to be better and smarter than the rest and your competition. Build your brand, build credibility and trust, and make people like you and want to do business with you. Second piece is schedule marketing time that is inflexible. Set up times on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whatever's necessary to get you to your goals, but make sure that this time is disciplined and non-flexible for what you're doing. Always build your network. If you sell B2B or professionals, make sure you utilize tools like LinkedIn and other places that allow you to very effectively be able to build up these types of networks for you. Utilize social media to be able to generate followers and likes so that people can start following you and grow those numbers out over time. Email lists. Make sure that you maintain and grow your email list. There's very effective apps that you can get on your smartphones now, where anytime you run into people with business cards and things like that, you can easily scan their cards and put them into your contact management system, especially for email lists. And then finally, make sure to promote yourself. Promote yourself everywhere, in your signatures, in your cards, on your website, your emails, everywhere where people see you and interact with you. They should be able to easily follow you and be able to join your networks through those tools. Fourth is create an integrated marketing strategy. The idea with this is, first off, to create active content. As we talked about earlier, 86% of the communication salespeople send out to executive buyers now is useless to them because they don't understand the needs and the gains that they're going to receive as a result of creating a relationship with them. And the best way to do that is through active content. It's giving in order to receive. But the idea is to make sure that it's useful to the client. Not to you, but useful information to them based upon what they need in their business and what's going to ultimately benefit them. The second piece is creating a blog. Blogs are very easy platforms for you to be able to create information and publish it and distribute it through what's called an RSS feed to all of your social media properties. So when you create your social media properties, it's an easy way for you to be able to build reach by being able to take the content from your blog and being able to distribute it out where most of the people's eyes are today. However, one of the challenges with social media is you have to have generally a higher frequency of content go out because of the lower level of reach that's typically involved with social media. Meaning the majority of social media, when people come onto it, includes a chronological feed of information. Therefore, you might not hit it at the right time, so therefore the increase in frequency will make up for the lack of reach that you would have there. On the opposite side of the spectrum is email. So email is another means, and one of the benefits of email that a lot of people forget is that when you create blog content, you can easily use that in your emails as well. Google doesn't penalize you for that because it's distributed through a different medium. So email is still a very effective means because most people still check their inboxes. Even with spam filters, there still tends to be a very high level of reach through email marketing, which means your frequency typically needs to be a little bit lower. Then if you do mailings, a lot of people still do traditional mailings, which again has about a 1 to 2% response rate. If you have a lower budget, one of the things you might want to think about is doing mailings to your promoters and your networked contents, more targeted emails that go out so that they can actually help you build out your business for you. And then the final thing is when it comes to advertising, very important point is to set one goal amongst all of your mediums that you're working within. So in this case, for example, if you're new to sales, new to your product or your market you're doing, maybe you want to focus the majority of what you're doing around building up your brand recognition as opposed to selling your products initially. As your market, as your network grows down the road, then you can reset these goals as needed to maybe be more product focused as opposed to more brand focused. So set the initial goal and make sure that it's working amongst all these mediums at the same time. Number 5, make sure that you monitor and measure your results. Set goals. Otherwise, how do you know it's working? Set your goals, and your goals will help define the time in which you need to actually be working with your mediums in your actual calendar to be able to be successful. Be reflective about what's working, right? Figure out what's working, what's not, and tweak and tune as a result of that, and always build on what works. So if something's working, great. Continue to work with it and move forward in that direction. And the final piece of this puzzle is, and certainly the most important piece, is to be patient and disciplined. Most marketing success, especially when it comes to brand marketing, does not happen overnight. It's like watering a plant. One of the things I often tell people is if you put a plant in sunlight and pour water on it, and stand over and watch for it to grow, you're going to be disappointed. You know that the plant's going to grow, but the bottom line is it doesn't happen overnight, right? We live in a society of instant gratification. Everybody's wanting to get things right away. And the reality is when it comes to brand marketing, this takes time, right? So when it comes to brand marketing, you need to think about you don't need to win every battle to win the war. That's what you're trying to accomplish through your marketing efforts. So if you follow these steps, you can create an effective marketing strategy for yourself as a salesperson. If you have any questions or want to learn more, please visit thesuccessfulsalesmanager.com.